episode 20 of the Retreadcast, our popular video podcast series for the global tyre retreading industry. Once again, I'm joined by my father, David Wilson, the publisher of Retreading Business. Hello, David. What's on the menu for today's podcast?
Thank you, Richard. Well, it's true to say that Bandag is one of the retread industry's iconic brands, and yet it's quite a few years since we had an update from Bridgestone about their latest plans for the brand. For that reason, we're delighted to be able to talk to Andrea Marconcini, who is Director Truck and Bus Replacements at Bridgestone EMIA, about his views on the future of the retreading market and the role played by the new tyre manufacturers in that market. Of course, we'll also be providing an update on some of the latest news stories from the sector, as well as information on how to vote in this year's Recircle Awards.
Excellent. As always, that sounds like a fantastic program we have in store. So without any further ado, let's go over to Bridgestone's European headquarters right now for that interview with Andrea Marconcini.
It's quite some time since Retreading Business reported on Bridgestone's latest activities in the retreading sector, so we're very fortunate today to be able to talk to Andrea Marconcini, who is Director Truck and Bus Replacement at Bridgestone EMIA. Good afternoon, Andrea, and welcome to the Retreadcast.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Not at all. So let's begin by talking in general about the retreading market in Europe. What trends are you seeing in retreading at the moment, and how do you see the future of retreading in the CP sector in general?
Yes, the retread in Europe is, let's say, was stagnant for several years. Let me say, even dropping in terms of in a dropping environment due to, let's say, some issue concerning the low-cost import from Asia. So we had, let's say, passed several not so good years, let me say. Now the situation is a bit better in terms of demand. The demand is, let's say, at least stabilized and is not dropping again. And what we see, that's why now, let's say, retread is even a key word in our organization, because we see some, let me say, bright future for retreading in the next coming years, especially thanks to, let's say, all the effort that I think all the companies, all the society in general is creating in, let's say, connection with the ecology, sustainability. And we are strongly believing that retread is really something which should be connected to the sustainability, let's say, ecology, circular economy. So there are really, let's say, something that should happen in the future that will put again retread on top of our mind and on top of our, let's say, activities. So that's why here in Bridgestone we are really considering retread as one of the key aspects and key business aspects for the future. So maybe we cannot see yet the really restarting of the activity of retread, so at least increasing. But at least this kind of level of stabilization can give us even consolidation, even in terms of, let's say, a retreader in the markets and brands available in the market, can give the possibility to rebound back in a more good shape in the next coming years.
Perfect. Okay, so tell me a little bit about how new tyre supply is affecting the retread market at the moment. Do you sense a change in how tyre dealers and fleets view the importance of security of suppliers as a reason for following the retread policy?
Yes, for sure. Let's say the new tyre supply, especially in the last during the last years. Okay, there were even the pandemic, which was really creating and affecting the overall demand. Creating even several issues, maybe even worse than the new tires in the retread market, because of course most of the retreaders were last year forced to close. Now there was, let's say, a strong, let's say, bouncing back of the total TBR demand, so total track demand during this year. Maybe in some way not so much expected, at least in this level, at this level. In the market, so even all the manufacturers were not prepared for this kind of very high demand in terms of TBR new. So this year was it is a good year for Retread because, let's say, of course, not having so much availability of the TBR new tires, but having the possibility to get Retread tires, the fleets changing a bit the behavior in purchasing even, let's say, more than the previous years, the Retread tires. So I think that this year is a good opportunity, and it was in the past months a good opportunity to really recover the confidence in the Retread market. So that's why we see that the demand is slightly increased in terms of requests from the fleet. And even we are, let's say, trying to push more the Retread, considering the fact that, let's say, there are scarcity of TBR new tires. Even in terms of course, cost in this period, in this year, there was even a jump in terms of cost due to the, let me say, raw material, the energy cost increase. While the, let's say, Retread looks like really for the fleet a kind of, again, okay, let me say, a recovery from the past. They are getting much more confidence, but even because the quality of the Retread tires is really now at a very top level. So versus the past, they made there was a really strong and great improvement in terms of production, material to be used. So really, one of the things that we are trying to do, taking back the confidence on Retread, is really to show that Retread tires is, let's say, as safe as a new tires, which was one of the main pain points, and really try to include the Retread tires in all our sales value proposition, putting back the attention on the fact that, okay, the TBR new tires, we have not that many, so there are not that many in the market, but you can always count on the Retread tires, which is, let's say, as I said, the quality should be perceived as the same as a new tire.
Okay, well, we've talked about market forces, but let's talk for a second about sustainability, if we can. You've already mentioned the importance of sustainability to tyre manufacturers like yourselves. But tell me, how are fleets now perceiving the role of retreading in terms of sustainability, and what tools do you have as a manufacturer to get your message across to the fleets?
Yeah, as I said, I think that in the sustainability should be really a key word for Retread in the next coming year, because, let's say, with all the activities run by the governments, by the institution, close to the concept of sustainability, for sure will help the Retread. Let me say that today is not the case. Let me say, it's not yet the case, or at least the perception of the fleet is not that the Retread tires is a part of, let's say, sustainability or ecology of our world. So let me say that at the moment, in the mindset of the fleet, of course, let's say, having a lot of pain everywhere in terms of cost, on how to, let's say, reduce the cost or control the cost at least. The fact that, let's say, they are perceiving Retread as a sustainable product, let me say that it's not yet in their mind. So it's our, let's say, scope, it's our way to how to promote Retread, to show them that this kind of solution that we are offering, because one of the most important aspects of our, let's say, value proposition is that Retread is not only a product, it's really should be considered as a solution for the fleet, as sustainable solution for the fleet. And that's why we are, let's say, using Retread in all our sales approach, from the, let's say, normal sales of Retread to a tire dealer or to a fleet, and even in our, let's say, what we are calling our solution business activities, means the sales that we are making directly to the fleets, and we are always including Retread. And what we are doing is even trying to shift to advertise our Retread product as okay, you will have a casing to be Retread, so I will offer a product. Really try to integrate in a much wider concept, even in the communication to the fleet, and change our way to communicate to the fleet, and saying by the way, if you are using Retread, you're not only taking a very good product in terms of quality, but you are even participating to the fact that the sustainable aspect of the business itself, because basically you are using the casing, we are consuming less raw material. So really trying to shift even the messages that we are sending. Even we are developing some advertising material much close to the green of the Retread tires, much more than simply the performance of the product itself. So I think that this should be steps to be done even further to let's pass this message that the Retread is really something that can support the environment. And it's even something that it could be, let's say, saving cost at their level, at the fleet level. So that's why shifting this message should be our duty in terms of manufacturer to let the fleet aware that Retread is really a sustainable product.
We'll go back to hear the rest of that interview with Andrea Marconcini very shortly. But first, an update on what's been going on in the tyre retreading market over the course of the past month.
Thanks, Richard. As usual at this time of the year, things have been fairly quiet during November, but there has been some activity among retreaders as well as the launch of a couple of new products. Firstly, the UK retreader Vaculug has announced a pledge to become carbon neutral by 2030, thereby claiming a position as the first UK retreader to pledge that any greenhouse gases produced by the company will be balanced by the amount removed from the atmosphere. Meanwhile, the Marangoni Group has announced that the Certi Quality Certification Body has renewed the company's ISO 14001 environmental quality certification for its retread plant in Rovereto, Italy. And in addition, Bridgestone America's Bandag retread plant in Abilene, Texas, recently celebrated 50 years of operation, so congratulations to them. On the new product front, we have two specific items of interest that we should mention. Firstly, we've seen the launch of a new web-based TPMS system from Kraiburg called Tyre Logic, which reliably detects gradual or abrupt pressure loss, possible mechanical damage to axles or brakes of the truck, or the imminent end of the regular tyre mileage. Meanwhile, tyre repair manufacturer Rema Tip has become the first company worldwide to launch a tyre repair patch with an innovative bimodal bonding layer. This new product will be available at the start of 2022 and is being launched under the sub-brand name of Premium. All of this news, of course, can be viewed on our website at retreadingbusiness.com.
Thanks, David. Now, before we go back over to that Bandag interview, we're proud to announce that the Recircle Awards nominations shortlist has now been finalised and revealed, and we can confirm that the voting is now open. Information on the shortlist can be viewed on the Recircle Awards website, as well as the Retreading Business and Tyre of Recycling websites as well. The voting process is very easy, and all you have to do is register to vote on the Recircle Awards website, and then you can make your vote count in as many categories as you like. But once again, remember, it's only one vote per person, per category.
Yes, at this point, a quick note about the voting system on the Recircle Awards website. Some of you may have experienced some temporary difficulty registering to vote shortly after the shortlist announcements were made. This was due to a server error. Now, hopefully by the time you see this podcast, this issue will have been rectified, but if you have experienced problems, please accept our apologies. We've been working hard to get the voting system back to full functionality.
Thanks, David. Now let's go back to that interview with Andrea Marconcini.
Okay, so let's now move on to the importance of data in terms of managing the total cost of ownership of tyres. I'm talking about your involvement with Webfleet solutions and other tools that you have to help provide value to your fleet customers. Can you provide us with some insight into the technological developments that are taking place in terms of managing fleet data and some of the projects that you're involved in to optimize the total cost of ownership?
Yeah. But yes, for sure, let's say this is a value added that we have. We are trying to set up any kind of, let's say, way to support the fleet with data, as you said, taking, let's say, the much, let's say, more synergies that we can get from the, let's say, the acquisition of the Webfleet. Of course, in this kind of, let's say, journey, because it's a journey, because of course we are trying, we have already good background and a good, let's say, set of data coming from the Webfleet itself, which is managing the fleet since a lot of years. We are trying to integrate even with some tires data. So because we are thinking that, let's say, the total cost of ownership is passing even through the fact that the tires are running a very important role in how the fleet should manage its cost, because tires is, let's say, in overall does not play a, let's say, key role in terms of the overall cost, but a good maintenance of the tires really can play a very important role, especially in the fuel consumption, for example. And if the tires are well maintained, you can have really a benefit on the fuel consumption. And that's kind of data that we are going to integrate and to show to the fleet in order to show how the tires management is important in their fleet, total cost of ownership that they have. Of course, and here I'm putting again Retread as a part of the data that we are recovering, because the idea is that we are not talking only about data coming from new tires, but even coming from retreaded tires. So how the total cost of ownership is changing if you are using a new tires or retreaded tires. So just to show to them that in the overall cost of ownership using retread tires, it will not influence negatively the fuel consumption or any other factor, but it can contribute even to, let's say, the total reduction of the cost of ownership itself. What we are even looking at, of course, is something that can support the fleet in what we are calling predictivity. So something which can predict not only, let's say, the data that is showing that, okay, the tires is punctured or you are consuming too much fuel. So we would like even to give something to the fleet which will support them in predicting what they should make, especially on tires. So supporting them in something which is one of the main pain points that the fleet has, so means the breakdown. So the breakdown for a tire puncture for a fleet, it's a cost. Sometimes it's a losing of money, losing of business sometimes. So the idea is how we can support with all the telematics that we have and all the data that we have in supporting them in avoiding, or let's say at least to be alerted that something is going to happen and how to avoid it. So that's really the connection that we are doing with our Webfleet companies, and how to integrate all the data that they already had with something new connected really to the total management of the fleet, including the tires.
Okay, so let's talk about your retreading organisation now for a second, if we may. You've always had an extensive retreading organisation in Europe, both in terms of your wholly owned retread plants, but also in terms of your Bandag network. What can you tell us about your plans to further optimise and develop this network across Europe?
But yes, we basically, okay, as I said, okay, even the footprint of Retreaders was, let's say, changing during those years because of considering the drop in terms of demand. Of course, it was creating, okay, yes, creating some kind of consolidation within the organization, the footprint that we have in Europe, but really is a consolidation. Consolidation means that is something that it was not losing a grip on the market in terms of retreaders, but really a kind of consolidation. So the big one, in some cases, has taken the part of the market which was left from some small one, which were let's say, or even closing the activity. So what we are seeing in the future is that this kind of consolidation of the players in the market, not only our retreaders, but even the overall retreaders in the market, will further consolidate due to the, let me say, economy of scale. So there is the need to optimize cost. So more bigger and more powerful you are in terms of production, much better you will be in terms of cost. And cost, of course, is one of the important part of the retread business. So we are seeing that, let's say, we saw that there are still in some countries large number of, let me say, independent retreaders, where in some cases will survive, let me say, in some other maybe there will be a further reduction of the footprint in some countries. But as I said, due to the market itself and how the market was changing during those years. So what we're seeing is the actual footprint is, let's say, well enough, but there will be some other consolidation and maybe some small player will not be anymore there in the next coming years due to, let's say, the consolidation as is happening in all the business, basically.
Okay, so times have changed hugely since the acquisition of the Bandag brand by Bridgestone. We understand perfectly well, of course, that the Bridgestone is the key corporate brand, but could you please give us some insight on how important the Bandag brand is these days, both in the marketplace, you know, in the way that fleets perceive the brand, but also within the priority of the brand within the Bridgestone organization?
Yes. Yes, basically the Bandag brand, but we had even some renewal of the brand some years ago, the logo of the brand, because what we are considering is that the Bandag brand has really a very, very high value in the market. Of course, we are thinking about Europe, but if you are looking at the US, let's say, maybe I don't want to say that Bandag is much more visible than Bridgestone, but it's, let's say, really considered a key brand for the tire market. In Europe is the same. So the Bandag brand was, and it is, still considering as a premium brand for retreading. We know it, we continue to, let's say, build on it. So knowing that the Bandag logo, the Bandag brand is our solution for retread, and we will never change. So the integration with the Bridgestone, okay, we had the integration with Bridgestone even starting several years ago in terms of organization, in terms of system, but then we decided that the Bandag brand must be maintained in our organization as really the key word for retread. So in all the messages now that we are using, in all the advertising that we are using, in terms of corporate advertising or any kind of message, as I said, connected to the sustainability, we are and we will continue to use the Bandag brand. As I said, the perception itself of the quality of the brand was, I don't think, never put in kind of risk or any kind of bad experience of the brand. So we are really considering to maintain and to build on it as, let's say, Bandag is really the Bridgestone solution for retread, and it will continue like this.
Okay, so we've already talked or touched upon the consolidation that's taken place in the market and the impact that you know, market trends have on independent retreaders. In general, how do you view the future of independent retreaders in the retreading sector? And what would you say to independent retreaders who are concerned about the growing influence of new tire manufacturers like yourselves on the retread market?
Yeah. Yes, as I said, the consolidation is there. It's part of the market. It's part of, let's say, any businesses. So the consolidation, I don't want to say globalization because it's a too abused word, but it's something that is really happening in reality. What we are looking at is that, let's say, retreading activity is, let's say, at retreaders level is still, let me say, should be advanced. Because it's this, let me say, I don't want to say the same job that the retraders, the retrading activity remain the same, remain the same since the last 40, 50 years. It's still a lot of manual process, which is, let's say, creating an issue in cost, because you need a lot of manpower to perform all the retrading operation. What we are, let's say, looking at is, okay, how we are supporting the retraders in their job. So not only, let's say, selling the tire rubber or something, some material that they should use, but even how to support and how to help them in making the step ahead and making the retread business really with a step in the future. So that's why what we are developing and what we are aiming, the retraders are doing, let's say not only our retraders, but let's say the retread in general, is that we are moving to a much more automatized activities in order to reduce time, reduce workload, reduce even the human errors that can happen in even in the retread activities. So our idea is to really follow the retraders and support them in the automatization, using systems to check the casings, check the retreads. So something much more really automatized in order to, let's say, shift a bit from the old-fashioned that the retread is really a pure manual activity to a much more robotized activities like in other industries. So that's important because in all the businesses, if there is not a step ahead on how we are running things, there will be not so bright future, let me say. So that's why it's important that us as a manufacturer, we are supporting them in making a step ahead and making something much more concrete in the automatization of their process, rather than continue to make the same thing at the same with the same pace.
Well, thanks for your time today, Andrea. We're grateful for your comments and your insights, and we look forward to welcoming you back on the Retreadcast very soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.
Well, that's all for this edition of the Retreadcast. We hope you've enjoyed it and that you'll tune in to another edition of our podcast very soon. Until then, goodbye and stay safe.